Well, hey there. Well, welcome back. So thank you so much for being gracious with me for taking yesterday off. I don't think I've taken a Monday off in a really long time since I first started my channel. So thank you so much for giving me a little bit of grace there. We had a wonderful time taking the girls on their first camping trip. Today, we are going to go through my kind of tomato monologues while I plant some tomatoes. I'm restarting some tomatoes for the fall, and even though I'm gardening inside today because it's extremo hot outside, these are actually going to go outside. I'm not gonna put them under a light. I don't want to have to harden them on. I want them to sink or swim outside, and hopefully we'll have some success. But within the realm of the monologue, I'm gonna give you a brief history on my tomato history. Okay, so the first year that we started gardening, of course I bought all of the tomato plants that we had, and we had a Roma that did so-so, and we had a Juliet, which was a plant that that was grown by Velarde Gardens that year, but she doesn't grow them anymore. She says that they weren't that popular, even though I really liked them. But it's a cool plant. It tastes really good. It's got a good flavor. So I think we grew that, and I think we grew like a Cherokee Purple. And they did so-so. I mean, we had a relative amount of success. We also battled with burr, and you know, we had a lot of people tell us that the way that we were watering wasn't right for the tomatoes. So we went through a lot of different things with those tomatoes in 17. And then in 2018, what we mostly did is I got like a 6-pack of a tomato called a Celebrity, which is a hybrid. And we had really good success with those Celebrities until I let some people kind of push me into believing that they were never going to make it in the 3-gallon buckets that they were in. So I decided, like in June, to take those 3-gallon buckets and transplant them up to 5-gallon buckets. And that's a lot, because anytime you transplant something, it has to go through a little bit of a shock. I mean, I've rarely seen anything besides planting into that straw bale. I've rarely seen anything that you just plant and it's like, woohoo! I instantly love life as a new transplant in this container or this bed or whatever you're putting it in. So that was a big mess up for me, is trying to move those up. So then after that, they just kind of struggled the rest of the season. They just were not happy at all. And then last year, I actually started a lot of our seeds, almost all of our tomato seeds from seed. And that year, kind of the drawback to my success had to do with not having shade in place at the right time. So I had some things like, one of the things I'm planting today is a great white. It's actually a white tomato. And it kind of, when it finishes, it's got like a bit of a yellow hue to it. So I had some things like that that did great up until, like I said, up until I should have had shade in place. So once I messed up the shade situation, then after that, it was just kind of like an ongoing struggle. And it's like, if your plants struggle for too long, especially tomatoes, they just end up getting some kind of bug. They get a virus or some kind of bug starts attacking them, and you know, it's, you know, then a point comes where you're like, do you want to keep, you know, watering this? Do you want to keep fertilizing this? Now, one thing I'll tell you, from that first year in 2017, we had a Texas wild cherry. And that Texas Wild Cherry has been the most successful tomato I've ever had. And that is really because that thing self-seeds all over my yard. So that's kind of, and I'm going to break away my story. It has a little bit to do with how I'm planting today, and I'll tell you that in a minute. Okay, so that's what happened in 2019. I planted a bunch of seeds. The plants got to good size. I got a little bit of stuff harvested from them. You know, a tomato here and there. Nothing substantial, you know, nothing to write home about or take pictures of for Instagram. Nothing like that at all. So then this year, you know, because I was trying to redo my garden and try to be fancy and all this stuff, I just kind of had that incident where I know better, and I should have made the mix in the bags that the tomatoes are in, because that's just straight compost that I got from the compost place, put in the bag, and put the plant in. I put a little bit of amendments in it. Y'all was there. Y'all watched it. I mean, come on. But I don't think they had enough aeration. I think probably it had a lot to do with me being late in the season. A lot of factors in place for why I just don't have any success with my tomatoes this year. I mean, I think I've not picked a tomato any bigger than my thumb, and you know, the taste has been so-so. So now, and I think I tried this one time. I think maybe last year I tried to get some tomatoes going for the fall, but I think I tried some silly experiment and it failed, and then I just said, you know, forget it. But I'm convinced, friends, that the best time to maybe grow tomatoes is in the fall. And then if I can keep them going through the fall, then maybe I'll have an early start on some spring tomatoes. And if my plants aren't still going in spring, then my theory is that I will have been able to take some clones, like cutting the suckers off and getting them to root in water, which then makes me a new plant, which is the same genetic age as the plant that I took it from. So it will be in a whole different ball game than anything that I tried to plant in the spring. So now that I've got this all planted, I'm going to chat with you a little bit about my method, since I've kind of taken you through my woes. So, like I said, the reason why that Texas Wild Cherry has, you know, it's just like Mother Nature. I always say that. It's like every time I plant tomatoes, I have all my little cups, and I look at the package, and I read, and I see exactly how deep it's supposed to be, and I make it exactly that deep. And I put my little perfect amount of seeds in there, and I have so success, especially when starting my own seeds. Then a bird eats a tomato and drops its waste over there, and then I have tomatoes everywhere. So that reminds me that it's a really good idea to try and keep things simple. And I've seen, especially like heirloom growers like Wild Boar Farms, where they just kind of mass plant like this. They don't think about spacing, especially because tomato seedlings, their first little sprouts are quite forgiving. So I'll be able to just supposedly pull these up and easily put them over into their next stage. And the reason why I'm doing it this way, this kind of just mass planting, I'm going to cover this up with a little bit of compost, but I'm doing it this way because, one, I always try to do all my perfect little cups, and then I overdo it or overwork it or blah, 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 blah. So this way, I'm going to get as many sprouts as I can to come up. And from those sprouts, I'm going to choose the ones that I like best, maybe some for my friends, and maybe some of you if you live locally. And I'm really going to give this my best shot because I have lots of little things that I can plant in. I have tons of peat cups. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm just mass throwing seeds. So in this space here, I've got one of my favorites, which is the Cherokee Purple. And then I've got the Great White and Ace 55 and Yellow Pear, Amish Paste, Brandywine, White Wonder, and Indigo Apple. And the Ace 55 is like the only one that is a determinate. So it's going to get to one certain height, it's going to make so many tomatoes, and then it's going to be gone. So if that's the best that happens for it going into the fall, then like I said, I'm looking forward to getting some good suckers taken off of it to make some extra plants. But these other ones, if I can, you know, keep them healthy and keep them warm through the winter and baby them, then they can grow and grow. You know, I could be getting tomatoes off of these next summer. So cross your fingers with me, friends. And I hope to have some luck with this. So, and this will become a part of our little update. I either will make another little kind of strand, maybe a playlist of my tomato monologues, or when I do my weekly check-in about the garden, I'll let you know where these are at and anything that I do with them as they go along. So, the last thing I'm going to do with this, and this is my seed start mix, which I've got that in other videos. I did add a little bit of coarse vermiculite to it just to make it a little bit more loose, because like I said, I'm just going to be going through and pulling these out as soon as they get that tall and make their first set of leaves. And I also added in a little bit of fertilizer just to give them a little extra boost as they come off, and that way if there's any delay in me getting them out in a timely manner, then they still have got some chance at life. This is one of my new drain trays. It doesn't have any holes in the bottom, so this soil mix was already moist when I put it in here, and now I'm just gonna go back and cover it with some really sifted compost, and then I'm gonna mist the top of it, and then after that I'm going to be watering from the bottom, because this is like a grape container from Costco, and I think that it will be fine watering from the bottom. And if not, I can always mist it, because this is a temporary home and we're just looking to get as many seedlings to come up as fast as possible. So that's where I'm going with my tomatoes right now. And if you have felt like, you know, just kind of trying to be perfect with your tomato seedlings is getting you no tomato plants, then maybe try this kind of broadcasting method to see if you can go the way I'm going. Well, as always, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me in my humble little garden as I learn to grow and grow from my mistakes and grow as a person more than anything. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy and probably more important than this, life, to check out my videos and support me. And I hope that you're having the best day ever, and I look forward to chatting with you next time.